Before we start, it is important to say that everything expressed in this podcast is our own opinion. As always, whether you agree or disagree, we invite you to join the discussion on Instagram at Shutter Sports Media or Twitter at ShutterSportsM.
Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Eli, and today I'm joined by
Clint Householder,
Cam Sterling,
Katie LeBoudelaire.
And on today's episode, we will be discussing the NHL trade deadline and breaking down how each team did.
From the Little Leagues
to the pros.
This is your weekly sports show.
Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast.
Take a seat at the table as we discuss.
Here's how today's episode will work. We'll go down the list of every NHL team in alphabetical order, discuss their deadline moves, and give them a final grade. Okay, so for alphabetical order, we're going to start off with the Anaheim Ducks. And I'll take it over to Katie to talk about that trade a little bit.
Yeah, so they had 4 trades this deadline. They started with Toronto with Ilya, how do you even?
Lyubushkin.
Started with that, and then trade with Edmonton for just some. That was actually one of their bigger trade. Like, they got 2 picks. Not really. I guess the 2024 first is a high pick, but the 5th conditional and meh. But they got rid of Adam Henrique, Sam Carrick, and a 2024 7th, which is a lot to give up for 2 picks, even though they do need picks. And then the other 2 trades were just kind of like swapping guys. Like the Montreal trade didn't really bring much in on either end, and then Ben Myers, meh.
It's kind of like just like depth. Like they could maybe call Myers up because like they got rid of Henrique and Carrick, so like it kind of makes sense where they're just like doing some like nothing trades just to bring bodies in. I think the Henrique trade is actually really good. Like, he's old, and like they probably don't want to keep him around long term. Getting a first-round pick for him and Sam Carrick is, like, I think very good. Like, when you look at like the other players that got first-round picks, like Lindholm, he got a first, and then he got some other he got some good prospects with it as well. But like the Flames gave up Hanifin, and they got like a first and Miromanov, and then like a second. So like when you look at like what the going rate for a first round pick was, when you only had to give up Adam Henrique and you brought one in, I think it's a great move. And then also with the Toronto one, like Lyubushkin has been terrible this year, and getting a 3rd round pick for him is also like great value there. So I think overall like a pretty good deadline for them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Adam Henrique didn't really fit their timeline very well with the Zegras and McTavish roster they're going for. And picking up that first for someone as old as Henrique is very helpful for that team and where they are right now, because they're not going to be ready to compete in a couple years anyways. So having Adam Henrique on the roster, taking up possessions that could have gone to their younger players is not helping them at all. So picking up the 1st and the 3rd from the Lyubushkin trade is going to be really helpful for their future.
Yeah, I looked at like them first when I was going through and grading everyone, and I was like, wow, they really didn't get that many draft picks, like way less than I thought. And then after going through everyone else, they probably got some of the most draft picks out of everybody. So it was successful for where they want to go, because they're not going to be good soon. So it's going to help them hopefully in the future.
Also, with Henrique out, once the college season ends, then they can sign Gauthier, and they can slot him into like that 3C role, or put him up on like left wing on the second line, or even move Zegras to wing and make him play center. So they could like freeze up another spot for Gauthier, because I think they will want him to sign his ELC. Like, he was drafted in 2022. It's probably time to like, get him some NHL run.
And I'm pretty sure Henrique's cap hit was $5.8 million, it seems like. So dumping that,
I'm pretty sure
especially
they retained half. I think
they might have retained half, but still. And it might be an expiring contract. I'm not sure. It looks like it signed in 2018. But that coming off the books in any way, especially getting for a first round pick for him instead of him just leaving in free agency, I think that was very helpful for the Ducks roster in their future.
Okay, so just based on their deadline, how do you think the team did? What grade would you assign the Ducks?
I mean, it was nothing earth-shattering, but I'd probably give them around a B, just because of the draft capital they got for some subpar players. A first and a 5th for Henrique, and a 3rd for Lyubushkin was a very, very good addition for them. Yeah. And I don't think those players were worth that much, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I had them at a B-, but again, that was the first team I did. So now, like, judging by this year's deadline, I'd be happy giving them a B.
I'd probably go B plus. Like I think like getting a first for Henrique, like I already mentioned, like I think that's a great move. Like I already mentioned the going rate for other people's for first round pick, but I think getting a first for him there is really great work. And then they got the Leafs to overpay for Lyubushkin, so even though they didn't give up that many guys, they still got back like above average returns for both of them. So I'd say B plus.
All right, and then we have our tier list tracker for each team heading into the rest of the season. And so at the top of the tier list, there's cup contenders. After that, it's playoff guarantee. And then wild card race, good but not good enough. Could be worse. And then congrats, you get Celebrini. And so Ducks, I mean,
Gotta be Celebrini.
gotta
watch.
be Celebrini.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
I mean, they're not contending in any way, but like it's all about the future for the Anaheim Ducks. They're a really young team, so.
Yeah, I think if they get one more like top 5 pick to that young core, like it's gonna be really good in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to the Arizona Coyotes, and I'll let Clint take this one away since the Coyotes hold a special place in his little itty-bitty heart.
You know, I do happen to like the Coyotes. This trade deadline was really confusing. Like, I don't think they got very much at all in return for their players. Like, they were asking a second for Zucker, and they settled for a sixth.
That's crazy.
Dumba, like, they got rid of Dumba's contract, gave up a seventh, and moved up to a fifth, which, like, again, is barely anything. And then, like, Stetcher and a seventh for a fourth. Like, they barely brought in any extra capital. I think it was more just a getting rid of money standpoint, and I bet there was pressure from the owners to get rid of these guys because they didn't retain on Zucker, they didn't retain on Dumba, and like going into the year we thought that they surely would, but with all like the arena negotiations and like trying to find a spot to put them, getting rid of money that like you don't really need is probably a good thing to do. So on like a hockey ops standpoint, I'd give it like a B, but like on an actual like trade value thing, I'd give them like a C minus.
Yeah, I feel like Arizona is like a step behind Anaheim where they're in the process of rebuilding their culture and getting rid of the older players and going young around Clayton Keller and Dylan Guenther and
Cooley.
Logan Cooley, yeah. So I feel like getting rid of Zucker, Dumba, and Stetcher was a good idea, but I don't think they got enough back for them. They really settled on the Zucker trade. I think they could have gotten maybe a fourth for him or maybe a fifth, but a sixth for one of their top two line guys, it was not a good addition for them.
I mean, like I'm sure they could have got more if they retained, but like the difference between a fourth and a sixth and a fifth, or like a sixth and a fourth on the Zucker one, or like a fifth and a fourth on the Dumba one, like it's not worth it to the Coyotes. Like when you're a tiny market team and you're like the brokest team in the league, it's more value. Like the likelihood of a fourth making the NHL is very low. The difference between a fourth and a sixth isn't that much. Like they're probably not going to make the NHL either way. So just freeing up the cap spaces or freeing up the money is probably more important to them than like retaining on them and getting.
I think it was just a matter of
like
getting them out.
Yeah. Like I think it's just like we are broke. These guys aren't that good. We ship them out.
Pay them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys kind of hit like everything I was going to say. I was like, it's really unclear on what they're trying to do and what they're going for. Like they had no plans heading into this deadline. And like we've seen them be worse, but they're very much still not good.
Yeah.
And they didn't get any like impact picks. Like they did, you're right, like empty all of their payroll, but they didn't get much in return. So I gave them a C. Yeah. Could be worse.
That's around what I would get. I'd give them a C minus just because they sold really low on Zucker. But, I mean, they couldn't do much better with the roster they have anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for that tier list, I put them in could be worse, but they're between that and congrats, you get Celebrini.
Yeah, because Connor Ingram is winning them games right now, so I don't think they're, like, getting Celebrini or anything, but I definitely put them in could be worse.
I feel like they got to be in Celebrini watch. Like, they didn't win a game in February, and then they won one at the start of March, and then they got pumped again after. Like, they are horrible right now. Like, Ingram was great at the start of the year. He's kind of, like, fell off. He was injured for a bit. I don't think he's a bad goalie, but, like, he's not, like, Vezina like he was at the start of the year.
He was leading the league in shutouts for a bit, but he either gets a shutout or lets in 5 goals. It's a really contrasting performances for him.
I think he was too good at the beginning, and now they're not going to get Celebrini.
It was doing well for my fantasy team for a bit, but not anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the Boston Bruins. and I would throw it to Cam, but I'm going to throw it to somebody's favorite team, and then we'll come back to you, Cam.
Cam, you get Buffalo,
Katie?
I get Boston.
I'll take the Sabres, man.
Katie, would you like to break down the Boston Bruins deadline?
Yeah, it was a pretty quiet deadline for Boston. Not as quiet as it's some other teams, but they got Pat Maroon for Luke. I don't even.
Toporowski?
Rossi?
Something like that.
Yeah, and a conditional to 2026 sixth. And then late in the deadline, they got Andrew Peak for Jacob Zaborli. Zaborli?
Something like that.
Zaboral.
There's two I's in there.
No, there's not one at the end. It's a misspelling.
Okay. Anyway, and then a 2027 third. So what notes do I have? Pat Maroon's been injured this season. He's expected to come back at the end of... Oh, it was a typo on my end. My bad. He's expected to come back at the end of March, but hasn't played much this year. He's not really a big points guy, but he was good for Tampa in their playoff run. So if Boston, they'll make it to the playoffs. If they go on a deep run, he could be helpful there. And then I might like someone like him on a line with some of the younger guys, just given his experience. And then Andrew Peak is an interesting trade. I don't know if we got enough. I don't know.
Yeah, giving up a third for Peak is kind of weird. I don't know.
I don't know.
And a good prospect. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he a good prospect? I haven't looked that much into him.
I looked him up, and on here I wrote that we didn't get enough, so I don't remember the stats, but he was
I do
pretty
like
good.
the Pat Maroon edition. It's kind of like what the Leafs are doing with Ryan Reeves, just giving bringing a tough guy a locker room piece for a championship contender. So, I mean, it wasn't a lot to give up. Toporowski in a conditional sixth. It's not much, especially if you're getting simply a locker room piece. He's not going to fill up the stat boards or anything, but chemistry is big for a championship contending teams, and you want to keep that during playoffs. So.
Also, you just brought up the Leafs, and I don't know if you guys saw that game the other night. That was a bloodbath, and bringing in Maroon, I think right after that game, then bringing in Maroon. I wonder why they did that.
Oh yeah,
they're
getting ready for those games during playoffs.
They're almost certainly going to be playing the Leafs in the first round.
Yeah.
I don't see how the Panthers drop out of the one. So they're going to be playing Toronto and bringing in more gooniness to beat up Toronto. I think that's the real.
That's going to be a fight
this
night.
player.
Pat Maroon versus Ryan Reeves.
Yeah, you can't even play Reeves. He's so bad defensively.
No, they'd play him to fight Pat Maroon.
Yeah, only when Maroon's on the ice.
So how would everybody grade the Bruins trade deadline?
I had a B minus. They just didn't do enough to really put them any higher. But they again kind of don't really need. They're in a good spot. They're always a contending team no matter what their lineup is.
Yeah, they didn't need to do much.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, adding that locker room piece like Pat Maroon is very good considering where they're going in the playoffs. And I'd probably give it a C+, just because they didn't make anything big, but they definitely helped their weaknesses. So
I'm a little bit more harsh on this deadline from Boston. I'm gonna go a C-.
Aww.
Last year they were
Womp.
a significantly better team and got bounced in the first round.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to break up Ullmark and Swayman. They've been great, and I don't know. I just feel like they needed to make a big move because
they could have gotten a lot for Swayman or Ullmark, no matter who they give up.
I don't think they're really going to compete this year. If you look at their roster, even though they are performing so well, that forward core is so shallow.
Aren't both of them top 10 in odds to win Vezina this year?
Yeah.
I think so, but I don't know, both of their forward core is so weak, and when you look at how many other teams are so deep, the Hurricanes added Gensel, the Panthers added Tarasenko. All these teams can run two lines, and it's they have the Pasternak line, and then next you're relying on Charlie Coyle and Brad Marchand, who's not who he used to be. I think they needed to make a big move, and I don't see them. I think they could beat the Leafs in round one. I don't see them making it past the second round at all. I don't know. They were a better team last year. They lost to Florida. Florida's a better team this year. I don't know. I just don't see them making it out the Atlantic.
Damn, I had them down for a playoff run / contender, but the contender was more because I'm a Bruins fan.
Yeah.
So
I'd say more playoff guarantee.
Yeah,
They're
I'd
gonna
definitely
go on a
say
run.
playoff guarantee.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Buffalo Sabres. And finally, Cam, take it away.
Here we go. So this trade deadline was decent for the Sabres, actually. I don't know. They brought in Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestad straight up. I think that works out for both teams, considering what Colorado did at the deadline as well. They They traded Eric Johnson for a 2024 fourth. It's not bad considering the age of Johnson. But they also dumped their captain for Kali Solin and a conditional seventh. I don't know. I feel like that's pretty rough to dump your captain for that little, no matter how old or how valuable Kyle Okposo is to that team. But I definitely think they did well for the Byram and Middlesad swap. So
on the Okposo one, like I think it was more doing their captain right. Like Okposo's been like a key locker room piece for them for like since they signed him in I think like 20. I'm not gonna guess the year because I truly don't know. But like he signed there and then he was their captain. I think it's like you're getting up there in age. We're going to send you to the team we think is going to win the cup where you want to go. Like, I don't know. Like, I know they didn't get the most value for him, but, like, Okposo's not that good anymore. And just I think it was just more, thank you for what you did for us. We're going to send you somewhere where you can win. So I don't think that's, like, a bad move by them. I don't know.
I was a big fan of the Bowen Byram trade. He's going to have a lot of chemistry with this Buffalo team in the future because of how many Team Canada guys there are on that team. And, like, they're all around the same age. And I just think that forward and decor is just going to be really good going forward. And, I mean, I liked it because essentially you just traded out Eric Johnson for Bowen Byram in your decor, and that's just a younger guy who's going to be good for them. Getting rid of Casey Middlesad will hurt them a little bit. He was leading their team in assists, but they're not looking to be good this year. They're looking to be good in the future, and I think they took a big step in the right direction with that.
Yeah, I really like the direction Buffalo's going with this new roster.
They're a fun team to watch.
They're just a team you want to cheer for.
On the Byram one, like Middlestat, like though he's the better player right now, he was so expendable for Buffalo. Like
Very.
Thompson and Cousins, you're already invested in long term.
Yep.
Middlestat like clearly wanted a big money extension, and Buffalo already gave out big money to their top two centers. They have like Savoy and Ostland
I like
in the
JJ
prospect
Peterka
pool
too as well.
Yeah.
but they have two centers that like have potential to be better than Middlestat. So like he became expendable, and then like adding to a decor or adding a piece like Byram to that decor is a good move. I'm not sure about like the fit because like Darlene and Byram are both very offensive minded defensemen, and then Power's like a little bit more like two-way, but still he's more like offensive sided. Like Samuelson's good, but like when you look at their only good defensemen, they're all left-handed. So like, I think that's a little weird, but I do like the Byram edition. And like Buffalo recently has been mainly like their criteria for players they get, it's like, do you want to be a Buffalo Sabre? And like Byram does, because like he's got, like you already mentioned, like the chemistry he has with the Team Canada guys, but like he's like best friends with like Dylan Cousins and like Peyton Krebs. Like those guys love each other, so I think like he will stay long term. So I like that move for them, but I think it makes the draft more interesting to see what they'll do.
True.
So what grade is everybody going to give the Buffalo Sabres?
I got him at a B. I really like the Bowen Byram trade and building that chemistry. So even though they gave up their captain, which is paying tribute to him, but also I don't know about the return they got for him. I'm still giving them a B for the Byram.
Yeah.
And the fourth round for Johnson. I kind of like that for them.
I had them at like a B minus.
I'd rip an A minus. I really like the Byram.
like it.
I really like the Byram
me
deal.
too.
And
I like it.
I just like Byram, and I like
Yeah.
this watching the Sabres, so
And,
I'm
like,
happy about it.
Okposo and Johnson like are not good players, so like I don't know.
Once again, they don't fit their timeline. So
Yeah.
And then where they're at could be worse.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Could
Pretty
be
smack,
worse, definitely.
smack dab there.
Okay, next we're going to go through the Calgary Flames, and I'll throw it over to Katie.
I'll go to Clint. It's been a while.
Throw it to me.
Clint wants it.
give it
Clint
to
is.
Clint.
Honestly, like if we're including the Lindholm and the Zdorov deals, I'm
Go
like
for
a
it.
huge fan of what the Flames did this season. Like they moved out every single UFA they had. Like it was clear they don't have a direction. Like the team's not going to win. Even if you brought back every member of the core, all those UFAs, they still weren't going to compete. And then like they had very little leverage in like the Hanifin talks and like the Tanev ones. But they still got a fairly good haul, I think. Like they got a first for Lindholm, which was good. I really liked the Kuzmenko edition when it happened. Like he is a very he's got a lot of talent like offensive wise, and the Flames have really been struggling to score goals. So bringing in a goal scorer like him was a good move, and he's actually helped like Jonathan Huberdeau turn his season around. So I really like that addition as a roster player wise. Like he honestly might be better than Lindholm was like for what they need specifically. I like Brustovich as a prospect. Like he's in Kitchener in the OHL. He like leads all the OHL in assists. He's been very good at like puck moving, and they don't really have like a top tier defensive or offensive minded prospect. On the back end in the system, so I like that addition. Yermo, like he's probably not going to make the league. Then they also got a third, but I think they did well in the Lindholm one. Now that Vegas traded for Tomas Hertl, the Hanifin trade gets better for the Flames because the first round pick was moved from 2025 until 2026, and it's now unprotected in 2026. And I like that for the Flames because like, while I think Vegas will be good, there's a higher chance that pick is like in the teens. So I like that one. Miramonov, like he's pretty good. I know he's like 26. He's like the same age as Hanifin. But I think he could really shine in Calgary. He didn't get the opportunity in Vegas because like Pietrangelo and Theodore are there, and they're like great offensive defensemen. So he never really got like a chance to run the power play except for like when they were hurt. And he looked good when he got the chance. So I like that the addition for Calgary. They signed him to a really cheap deal after. I think that's a good move. And then the Tanev deal, like Grushnikov is basically like the opposite of Brustovich. Like he's all defense. So like I think he could turn into something. Maybe they'll be a good pair if they like play together in the AHL in 2 years. A second for Tanev is pretty good. And then they got like Okiatuk. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but he was they got him from San Jose. He was a part of the Meyer deal last year. I think he's like a good depth player to bring in. So I really like their whole trade deadline season.
Yeah, I like the rebuild that Calgary's going for. I don't know about keeping Markstrom. I guess they didn't find anything worth it. But as a Canucks fan, I like the Lindholm and the Zadorov trades for both teams. With Canucks going for a deep playoff push and Calgary starting to enter the rebuild process. I mean, you had to ship those guys out one way or another. So I like the Hanifin return, especially the first in 2026, praying that the Knights aren't as good as they are now for that pick to fall. And I actually really like Grushnikov. He's gonna pair well.
Yeah, same thing here. I like the Hanifin trade. They got enough back for that. And then I said they need to find direction, which I think they're starting to, but they really need to like map out this rebuild because it's taken a few more years than it needs to just because they didn't know what they were doing for the past few years.
Yeah, since the Tkachuk, Gaudreau, and Lindholm lineup fell apart, they've been pretty average, pretty middle of the pack roster, so I think it was time to ship everybody out this year.
On the Markstrom one, like I'm fairly certain they had a trade like worked out with the Devils, and then the owners vetoed it, and it like pissed off Markstrom because like he thought he was moving to New Jersey, and like he was like probably already packed and ready to go, and then the owner was like not happening. I think the trade has just been like kind of vetoed to the offseason. Like if you look at the moves the Devils made, it still looks like they want to get Markstrom in the offseason. I think it's going to happen in the offseason, so like I'm not opposed to them not trading him now. And like especially because they've been playing so well as of late. Like Hanifin obviously wasn't going to stay, but like Markstrom is still signed for a couple more years. So like the guys that they traded out obviously weren't going to stay, but Markstrom could stay, and the team's playing so well, so it kind of makes sense to keep those guys.
Yeah, and I know for Markstrom it was pretty annoying the entire like trade process and being talked about in the media for months now. So I feel like saving that trade till the off season, letting him process it, not in the middle of the season, will be pretty good simply for his mental health, honestly.
Yeah.
So what would everybody grade the Flames deadline?
I'm gonna give it a B+. I really like the direction they're going in right now, and it's finally time for this team to enter the rebuild.
Yeah, I gave it a B.
I'd probably lean A. Like I'm glad they finally picked a direction. I think once they trade Markstrom in the off season, I think it'll look even better. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of what they're doing. Like they're not going to compete now, and I think they realize that. So
yeah, I definitely agree.
And then on the list, I have them at good but not good enough. Like they've been
I like that spot.
middle of the pack.
I think that's pretty fair. Like they
were technically in the wild card race, but now that they've shipped everybody off, I think that's the perfect spot for them.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, so we're going to move down to a team that made very few moves at the deadline. We're going to... Oh, no, we're not.
We're not.
Actually, we're going to be moving on to the Carolina Hurricanes.
A big one.
A big one. Take it
Yay,
away.
alphabet.
Alrighty. Well, the biggest trade acquisition of the trade deadline, Jake Gensel went to the Carolina Panthers for
Hurricanes.
or not football today.
Give
but
Bryce Young some
He's
help.
switching
Yep.
sports.
Going to the Carolina Hurricanes, Jake Gensel and Ty Smith going to Carolina for Michael Bunting, Vili Koivunen, Cruz Lucius, and Vasily Ponomarov, and 2 2024 conditional picks. I like that return for Jake Gensel, especially for Carolina because he's one of the top goal scorers in the last 4 years. He's been shadowed by Crosby and Malkin, and I feel like he's going to break out even more on the Carolina Hurricanes, being one of the centerpieces of that offense. And Kuznetsov, I really like the addition of Evgeny Kuznetsov for a third, and Washington retaining half his salary, which is very good for the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the 2 forward acquisitions, especially with them trying to go for a championship this year. They could have gone for a goalie if they had a decent trade lined up for them. I don't know if they did, but their goalie core has been really injury prone this year, and if they can stay healthy for the playoffs, they're definitely a championship contender.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they lost a trade. Like they won.
No,
I
they
think all the trades that they had.
I wouldn't say the teams that gave them these players lost their trades, but
Yeah.
there's no way
they
that
didn't lose
the
anything.
Hurricanes
Yeah.
lost any.
And they're in a good spot in the standings now, so hopefully they can with all these moves, because they did make a lot of moves, they can shake things up and climb the standings. Is obviously what they're looking to do. And I like the Kuznetsov deal. He's injured currently, but he should be back in a week.
Yeah.
So, and what I find interesting is he's always been with the Caps, so it'll be very interesting to see how he does in Carolina and how they use him because he's been with the same team forever. But yeah, I like their deadline for them.
I'm a little bit more harsh on the Kuznetsov one, or look at it in a different light, because Kuznetsov has been really bad this year. He has 17 points in 43 games. He has not been the player that he once was. He's a minus 11. He's never been good defensively, but this year he's been really bad. He got sent down to Hershey. He was playing in the AHL. They waived him. Nobody picked him up. And he has another year left after this. So even at 50% retained, I believe he's around $4 million. I think it's 3.9 is the exact number. I could be wrong.
He signed. No, it's $3 million. He signed in 2023
for the Hurricanes. I'm pretty sure it's 3.9 is what he's at.
3.9
after Washington retained, and they have a lot of RFAs and UFAs to sign. And when you're taking a game, if Kuznetsov was a 1-year deal, I'd be more happy about it. I'd look at it in a different light. But because he has that extra year at $4 million, if he doesn't work out this year, if he doesn't turn it around, which I'm not insanely confident that he will, then that's $4 million on the books that are not what you want. You don't want that $4 million on your books. And that could make it harder to re-sign Jarvis and Natchez. Gensel, they have to extend him. They'd likely want to extend him at least. They have so many UFAs and RFAs that their whole decor, Pesci and Shea, are both UFAs. So I think bringing in $4 million for next year is a little sketchy. The Gensel deal, I think they did great in. Giving up a quantity package instead of a quality package, I think was a very good move for them. Especially when you consider that they don't have an AHL team. So they can't sign these guys and then send them to play in the AHL. So it makes sense to rather give up a bunch of B plus prospects than first round picks, because they don't have anywhere to put these B plus prospects. So I think that was a great move for them. Koivunen, I think, is a little underrated. He's almost a point per game in Liga. I think he's a tough one to lose. Lucius, he's been great in the NCAA, but he's a very flashy player. I'm not sure how much his game translates to the NHL. So that one, I'm fine giving him up. And then the conditional second, it's Philly's second, which is I think 45th, around there in the second round. So that's not that much to give up. If they make it to the Cup final, then it turns to a first, and if you make it to the Cup final, then it's worth it. So I don't really mind that at all. So I think they did great in the Gensel one. The Kuznetsov one I'm a little sketchy on.
I don't know. Kuznetsov has something that not very few people on the Hurricanes have, and that's championship experience. Yeah. And if they're going for that Stanley Cup championship, which it seems like they are, since they gave the conditions on the picks, I feel like Kuznetsov was a good addition, especially if they're going for that and want people on their roster who's been through that process. So I don't know. The $4 million is a pretty big cap hit, but I mean they're going to be championship contenders for a while. So I think I think it was a decent deal.
So what would everybody give as a grade for the Hurricanes?
Before considering Clint's point of view, I have them at an A-.
I
A
mean,
little high.
I have them at an A, especially if
Alright.
it's a 50% retention on the Kuznetsov contract. Plus, that Jake Gensel is a top forward in the league, especially for goal scoring. So I'm sticking with an A on this one.
I'm gonna lean B plus because like I'm not as high on the Kuznetsov one, but I do love the Gensel deal. So I'm like somewhere in the middle, like B plus, A minus, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and then I've got them at playoff push. Or playoff guarantee, sorry.
I'd put them at cup contenders.
I would agree with the cup contender one there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
They were definitely playoff guarantee before the trade deadline, but
True.
Yeah.
after the Gensel and Kuznetsov deals, I'd put them up there.
So now we're going to move on to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Chicago will be quick. So.
Yeah, this is a small one.
They made one move with Nashville, and they got rid of Anthony.
Beauvillier.
There's so many different ways to say that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they got rid of Anthony.
I mean, as a Canucks fan, I don't really love this. I really like the way Beauvillier was playing,
Yeah.
for the Canucks at least. But a 5th-round pick, I think he's worth more than that, personally. It might be a bit biased, but
No, I think so.
I think they could have gotten more for Beauvillier.
And they should have tried to. Like,
Yeah,
they need more. But
definitely going in a rebuild, I think they could have gotten a higher pick for him.
And I'm pretty sure they gave up a 5th to get Beauvillier, so it's kind of just like
Yeah,
nothing.
Just got
It's
rid
like,
of him.
okay, we
It's
had
a
him.
nothing deal.
They just
Yeah.
got Beauvillier for 2 months, and then that's about it. So I don't know. Not a great move, but like again, they don't have that much to sell. They kind of
Yeah.
suck, and there's like
Yeah.
no good players to trade. They like decided to lock up Mrazek and Foligno. So they didn't really have any moves to make. So like this one, I don't know. It's just kind of nothing.
yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna say my grade right now. I'd give it a D. Especially if it's the only deal they made, and they could have gotten more for the player they gave up. I can't go much higher than that.
I had it like a C-. Like, there's not much else they could have done.
Yeah.
They did their best, but yeah.
I'd probably rip a C. Like I don't know. Beauvillier wasn't like great in Chicago, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Just kind of nothing.
And then, congrats, you get Celebrini. And then, even though you shouldn't.
Yeah, we don't need to go on that rant though.
No.
Next up is the Colorado Avalanche.
Another big one.
Yeah.
Who Clint
Clint.
is
All right, you
giving
got
me
it.
Clint is giving me bug eyes, so I'll give you the next one, Cam.
I am a huge fan of this deadline from the Avalanche. They somehow upgraded their they upgraded their top 6, their bottom 6, their decor all in one deadline
This was
without
a
giving up like
crazy
a ton.
deadline for them.
Like I think they did a great job. Like Middlestat for Byram, like Middlestat's the better player right now. They already have a loaded decor, so like Byram really wasn't going to get that opportunity. So I think like that's it obviously hurts to see your former fourth overall pick go, but like he's had injury issues and he hasn't really broken out yet. So I think getting someone that can like actually fill the 2C hole that Kadri left. But yeah, I think Middlestat like finally fills that 2C role that they've been direly trying to replace since Kadri left. I think that's a great deal for them. Ditching the Johansson contract for Walker. Like I know they gave up a first, but like getting rid of Johansson, who was terrible with them, and like not having to retain any on that, I think is a great move. And then Walker like is probably more
Walker's
impactful now
literally
than Byram.
replacing Bo and Byron.
Yeah, he's like I think Byram will be better than Walker long term, but like just for straight this season, they're probably about the same. So like I think that's a good move. And then I really liked their depth moves. Like they picked up Trennan and Duhaime for like 2/3, which I think was great moves. Like Trennan, he's big, he can play physical. I like that for the playoffs. Duhaime, more depth. They only gave up a third, so like I think they because before the deadline they didn't really have a second line center. Their forward core was pretty lackluster behind like the studs like McKinnon, Rantanen. Like you don't know if Landeskog's coming back yet or like what his status is, and like Nichushkin was just coming back from injury, so they were like a very lopsided like top heavy forward core, and now they've like really done a great job to even it out. So I really like their deadline.
Yeah, they bought a lot and they really didn't lose much. That was my main. Like they moved a lot of things around and they could have given up a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that Colorado goes in the championship contender. I mean, like they're a stacked team, and they added on trade deadline day. It's going to be dangerous for opposing teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, and with that, I'd put them at an A.
Yeah,
I'd definitely give them an A as well.
I'd probably go A+. I really like this deadline for them. And
Yeah.
like Middlestat is an RFA after this year, so he's not just like a rental. Like he will be a part of the core coming forward. So I really like that move.
The only thing that I wouldn't give them an A+ for is like I don't know if Sean Walker is worth that first round pick. I mean, that's the only thing holding it back probably.
Yeah,
But Sean Walker was a great addition anyways. So it's not going to be a good pick anyways. So
Yeah.
I'd stick with A.
I think the price was like the first round pick price was more on moving Johansson than getting Walker's. Like
Yeah, that was
the
a tough
combination of
contract
both, I
move.
think, is a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Take it away, Mr. Sterling.
Alrighty, this was a pretty mid-trade deadline for the Blue Jackets. I don't really know what direction they're going in, but they got Malcolm Subban for some future considerations.
Hold on. That was the highlight of the deadline. The Twitter post they made after that trade.
I was a fan on Malcolm Subban when he played for Vegas. Brought in Zaboral from Boston. I mean, brought in a third-round pick, which was nice for the Blue Jackets. It's not much. They shipped out Ralzovic, but I don't know. It's a pretty mid-trade deadline for a pretty mid team.
Yeah.
I will say, originally I thought it was super mid, but Nylander has been good since coming
he's
over.
been
Like
cooking.
when they got him, I was like, kind of nothing. But I'm pretty sure he's over a point per game and like almost a goal per game since he went there. Like he's been great there. So I don't know. The rest of them, like Subban for future considerations, who really cares?
I'm a Subban guy.
I don't think he'll play unless because they didn't trade Merzlikins. They already have Tarasov, so I don't think he'll play. So it's kind of a nothing there. The peak deal, like whatever, and then I think Nylander is pretty solid for them. So I kind of like that. And then like the Roslovic one, it's like. Whatever. He was going to leave after this year anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I think this is a quick, probably give it a D+. It's not much. I mean,
I give it a C.
yeah, it's not bad.
They
They're
did
going
what
in
they
a rebuild
could.
anyways.
Yeah.
So the Roslovic shipping was nice, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'd lean like C+ as well.
Yeah.
Like nothing bad, nothing good. In the middle.
They did what they could.
Yeah.
And then I have them at like in between congrats you get Celebrini and could be worse. Thoughts?
I'd have him in congrats, you get Celebrini.
Yeah.
Or it depends like what we're considering congrats, you get Celebrini.
Yeah,
Are
I
we
don't
thinking
know.
like bottom 5 teams in the league are in that tier?
Yeah.
If we're going bottom 5, I'd put them
Yeah,
there.
put them there.
Let's move on to a contending team, the Dallas Stars.
So the trade with Calgary, the Emilio Pettersson and Riley Domini affected virtually nothing. It's like basically the same person you're trading for.
Yeah.
They got Chris Tanev, which obviously helps them heading into hopefully a run. And then goalie prospect Cole Brady is actually very good. I liked that trade, even though like they have Ottinger, they don't really need a prospect right now, but it's good to fill their pipeline. So I like that. I think they won all their trades, and it was a good.
Yeah,
deadline from
especially
them.
for a championship contender, they didn't need to do much. Adding Chris Tanev is a good addition for any playoff team, honestly.
Yeah.
Adding a pure defensive defenseman is going to help them regardless. And I think Cole Brady's going to play well in the limited time he's going to get. So, I mean, like I said before, I am a fan of Grishnikov, but considering they got Tanev, especially for their playoff run, I like this trade deadline for Dallas.
Yeah.
I really like it as well. Like especially with the emergence of Stankoven and Harley this year, like and Johnston's been playing great. Like their forward core, they didn't need to tweak at all, and then like adding a good shutdown D-man was really all they needed, and they kind of got the best one available at a fairly reasonable price. Like they didn't even give up a first, so I think they did a great job. So I'd go like A.
Yeah, aren't they only paying like 25% of Tanev's contract anyways?
I'm not sure on the.
I'm pretty
specific.
sure. I wrote it down. Give me 1 minute.
Yeah, I gave them Cam's looking at that. I said B+, but like I'd go higher.
I'd go like A there, like because like
Yeah.
their forward core has been great for them this year. They didn't really
True.
need to, they
Yeah.
made the only moves they needed to make, and they didn't overpay for them. So I'd give
True.
them an A.
And then
Okay, I
Cup
got it.
contenders.
Cup contender for sure.
Flames retain 50% of Tanev's contract. Devils retain 25% for a fourth round pick. And Dallas retains 25% as well. So I really like that.
Yeah. All right, Clint, take your Red Wings.
my family's Red Wings fans. I don't really know what they were doing this offseason or this deadline. They kind of fell asleep. Like, they made one move, like Costin out for CMEC and a 7th. Like, I'm pretty sure CMEC has been in the AHL this year. I don't think that really affects anything. I'm shocked they didn't move a defenseman. I thought they were going to bring up Edvinsson. Like, if I were them, I would have sold like a Goss to spare if they could get a decent return or like something like that. Like, I know it would have hurt to see him go, but I think it would be better for the long-term outlook. I think the shelling that Colorado gave them really like affected their deadline. They're like, yeah, we're not legit, especially with the Larkin injury for 2 weeks. Like, I think that kind of made them be hesitant to make a big move. So I don't know. They did nothing.
Yeah, they're in a wild card like spot or race right now, and so I thought they would have done more.
I definitely thought they were going to do something.
But
I
they
mean,
really
they're
didn't.
close to a playoff spot.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really have any moves to make. Like, the decor, they have so many bad contracts. Like, Hall is on a bad deal. Sherratt's on a bad deal. Mata's not on a great deal. Petrie's on a bad deal. Like, they have no contracts to move out, so like they couldn't really upgrade on the defense. And they have a bunch. Their forward core has been very good. Like, they've been producing from depth, so like they've been great. And then like goaltending wise, Lyon's been good. There's not really a great backup to get, and it didn't really make sense for them to get a backup. So like there was really no good, like, unless they made a huge splash like for a Gensel, which like when you look at the return that Pittsburgh got for Gensel, I feel like they could have done. But like there wasn't really a huge move for them to make, so I don't know.
Yeah. With that, I gave them a C.
Yeah, I'd go C too.
I'd go C-. Yeah.
I might go lower, honestly.
Actually, I'm gonna go D+ just because they are in a wild card
Yeah,
race.
like,
So I
they're
was
gonna get
predicting them
worse.
to do something, and they did a nothing deal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Staying in the same spot, I don't think was good.
Yeah, and so like right now I put them in wild card race, but
Yeah.
I see it very likely that they
No,
might drop down.
I
to
think
good,
they
but
might
not
drop
good enough.
down.
Well, like none of the teams below them in the
That's-
East made moves.
you
Like
know
the
what,
teams
that's what
above
I
them
guess,
did,
yeah.
but the teams below them didn't. Like the Islanders stayed put, and like
Yeah, you know what, I wrote
Capitals
that as
sold
well.
Kuznetsov. So like I don't know. I don't think they needed to make a move. They realized everyone else below them wasn't making a move. So
Yeah, I'll put them in wild card race because they'll probably still be up there, but
Yeah.
it might be from afar.
Moving on to another contending team, let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers.
I'm honestly fairly low on their deadline. Like they gave up a first and got Henrique and Carrick, and then they also gave up like a 4th and got Stetcher. Like I don't think those guys improved the team that much.
They're not game-changing moves.
Yeah, it's like they basically gave up a first for like a 3rd-line center, which like I don't think is a great move. Like especially when you look at what the other teams did around them in their division. Like Vancouver added Lindholm, Vegas added Hurdle, Hannafin, Mantha. And then the Avalanche added so much. The Stars added so much. The Jets added so much. Like I just don't think what they did was enough. Their decor is still not that great. Their goaltending is still sketchy. Sure, their depth is better now, but I don't think it's enough. So I'm pretty low on their deadline here.
Yeah, I think they could have done more with the assets they have. I mean, Adam Henrique's not going to help a whole lot. And Troy Stetcher, is he going to be like bottom 2 defenseman on that roster?
Yeah, like I don't even know how much run he's gonna get.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
Just,
It's pretty mid for a team who should be a championship contender. I feel like they could have made more considering the teams around them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Stetcher's kind of like a Pat Maroon or a Ryan Reeves kind of trade, but not really what Edmonton needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's
I
not a
don't
bad guy
really
to have
get
on
it.
your side, but I wouldn't like actively go try and get him.
Yeah.
So how do we grade their trade deadline?
I think they could have done more. I still think Henrique will be good offensively and like propel them into possibly the second round or maybe farther, but I don't know. I'd give it a C+ just because they could have
Yeah.
done more.
That's what I have.
I
but-
agree on the C+. And I think they're still. I'd put them in playoff guarantee. I
Yeah.
don't see them actually competing.
They're
for
definitely
cup.
a
No, I
playoff
wouldn't. I wouldn't
guarantee,
say
yeah.
contenders, but I'd say playoff guarantee.
I definitely think they should have been cup contenders if they did more at the trade
Yeah,
deadline, though.
I think
Sure.
they fumbled being a true contender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now moving on to the current number 1 team in the league, the Florida Panthers.
Just barely.
Still,
Canucks are right behind them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
still number 1 right now.
Go Vancouver.
Okay.
I like this trade deadline for the Panthers considering they're first in the league. They added Tarasenko for a 4th and a 3rd.
God, for literally nothing. For nothing. That was robbery.
Yeah.
Okposo is going to be a decent 4th line forward, and Mangus Hellberg from Pittsburgh. I mean, that's a nothing deal. So Tarasenko is going to add a lot to that. Do you think he's playing second line or third line on the Florida Panthers roster right now?
He's either going to be like they're either going to move someone on the first line down or put him on the second line.
Yeah.
So. And even if they play him on the third line, then that's just.
I kind of like
so.
Tarasenko on the first line, given that championship pedigree. So, I don't know. I like this. I like this trade deadline for the Panthers. They did just the right amount.
Yeah, like they barely gave up anything, like a third, a fourth, a seventh, another seventh, and a couple scrub prospects, and they added so much depth to that forward core. Like Tarasenko is like top end talent; he can play top six. Okposo helps sure out the bottom six, like
Just
good defensively.
Just a veteran presence on the forward.
So I think they did a phenomenal job. They might be the overall winners of the trade deadline because they gave up nothing and added so much. Like all the other teams that added a lot, they gave up a lot. This team added a lot and didn't give up anything. So
I think they were the only A I gave out. Not gonna lie.
I'd give them an A+.
Just of how much they robbed and sent.
I think this is going to be an A+ for me.
Yeah, A+.
And then definitely cup contenders.
For sure, cup contender.
We're going to move on to a team that even I can cover this deadline. The Los Angeles Kings.
Where are they?
Did absolutely nothing.
And like, why? They just stayed below average.
Dude, aren't they a wild card contender right now too?
Not quite, I don't think.
They're in their first wild card right now.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're
No,
they're
not.
They passed Vegas. They're third. They're third in the Pacific. Sorry.
Yeah, they're
Wow.
third in the Pacific.
Yeah, they're third in the Pacific.
Hello?
That is insane, and they didn't do anything.
I mean, to be fair, like
What the heck?
they don't have that many moves to make. Because, like, of course, like, you want to bring in a goalie, but, like, Nashville wasn't moving Saros and Calgary wasn't moving Markstrom. So there's no one good to actually get. And then, like, the D-core, like, it's solid. Like, they have Doughty, they have Roy, sorry. They have Gavrikov, they have Mikey Anderson, and, like, Clark. And then the forward core, like, you have Dubois. Like, you can't make a move when you're paying a scrub $8 million that doesn't try. So, like, there wasn't really many moves for them to make on the forward core. So, like, I don't think it's a
Byfield's
horrible
got them
deal.
covered.
But yeah, Byfield's elite.
Yeah, I put them at a D though. Like, they didn't. I don't know. They could have done.
I don't know. I guess they didn't really need to do anything considering they're still playing well.
Yeah, I'd say will
and,
though.
Like past the wild card spot even, but I don't know. I'd give them a C.
I'd go C. Like, they didn't make any moves, but they also didn't make any bad moves. So it's like they didn't throw away their deadline. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, but judging by who's under them, like I would say
it's gonna be a tough race.
I say they dropped to
didn't
wild
do
card.
anything.
I say they dropped a wild card race.
I mean, I don't think there was
They're
a move for them to make that would change their trajectory that much.
Yeah.
Like, unless they, like, there was no move to make them better than any of the contending teams. So I don't think it's bad.
Yeah. What do you say? Playoff guarantee or wild card race?
Wild card race.
I'd go playoff guarantee. Like, the West is really weak. Like, past like the top contenders. So like,
Who's second in the wild card?
like
Oh,
second
yeah.
wild card race is Nashville,
Nashville.
and then the teams out of it are Calgary and Seattle. And like, I'm a Kraken fan. I don't think we're making the playoffs. I don't think the Flames are either. So I think they
Knights
are, kind
are
of a
there
lock.
though. It's Predators, Knights at the moment.
Yeah, but like, and I think that's what it will stay. Like, I don't see either of those teams falling out for Calgary or Seattle or like Minnesota.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so let's talk about Minnesota. Katie.
They had a nice little trade with Colorado, gained a 2026 third. The amount of 2026 picks that were dealt in this deadline, I guess it's coming up. It feels like it's still so far in the future. And then Turner Ellison for Nick Petain.
Nick Petan. Something like
So Turner Ellison is an AHL player. Nick Petain is up and down between NHL AHL. That was basically just like a swap. I'd say they kind of lost that one, maybe. Like, Nick Petain's the better player, but who knows?
I mean, a third-round pick for considering where they are in the standings.
Yeah.
You can't really go wrong with that trade. I mean, they're not contending. They're not tanking. They're literally... They're very average right now, so I don't really know what they could have done to make this trade deadline better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know. They didn't have any. They didn't have any great pieces to sell, and like they got thirds. I don't know. Pretty mid deadline.
Yeah, they didn't improve. They didn't sell. I give them a C.
Yeah, I'd go C as well, and I think good but not good enough.
I had them in could be worse.
That's fair.
I like that, yeah.
Okay, would we like to quickly cover the Montreal Canadiens?
I mean, they got Jake Allen out. That was
Yeah.
what's his contract at?
they have to retain half, so they're paying him 1.9 million, and the Devils cover the other 1.9.
I mean,
it's a decent trade.
That'll allow more playing time for Montembeault, get his development up, and I mean, you can't really go wrong for a third for Jake Allen. You're not going to get much more.
Yeah, and then like the other trades doesn't matter.
Jacob Perreault for Jan Misak, another just nothing deal. I mean, I don't know. I like the move to get Jake Allen out and get Montembeault as a starting goalie. So
Yeah.
I like the trade deadline for Montreal.
Yeah, I'd probably go I'd go C+. They didn't do any big moves.
I'd go
but
C+.
yeah.
As well.
I said
Another mid trade deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, they stayed the same. They didn't really get many picks. Like they got a conditional third, and that's about it. And I'd put them in. Where would you put them? Congrats or could be worse?
I think could be worse.
I'd say could be worse.
Yeah.
They're not
they're not quite that bad.
Yeah.
And moving on to a team that I believe might have the worst name in the league, the Nashville Predators.
I actually like this trade deadline for the Predators. They're another team pushing for that for a playoff contention,
Yep.
and in a tight race. I mean, adding Beauvillier, adding Jason Zucker, Jeremy Hansel. I don't know much about Jeremy Hansel, so
Hansel plays for Seattle in the WHL. He's been over a point per game. He's actually pretty
Okay.
good. Like
Okay.
the sword for Hansel, part of that deal was kind of like they're both like equivalent prospects. Like it's like
Yeah.
kind of whatever.
Just shake it
okay.
up.
I personally really like it for the Predators.
Yeah.
Jason Zucker is gonna help a lot for the playoff push, and like we said before, I think they could have gotten more, like should have given up more for Jason Zucker.
Yeah,
so.
they won that.
And same with Beauvillier.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they should have given up more than a fifth, and they didn't. So I like the limited amount of assets that they gave up for two very good forwards.
Yeah. On the moves that they did make, I think I'd say they definitely won. Like they got better players and got more assets for the player that they did trade away than the two players that they got. So I think like on the moves that they did make, I think they did very well. I still think they should have sold like Saros. Could have got them a ransom, and like keeping him I think was kind of pointless. Like
I think
yeah,
a lot of teams were looking for,
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
player like Saros.
Like I know you're in a wild card spot. I know you won 9 games in a row. You're not competing, especially when you watch all the moves the other teams are making. Like I'd rather bottom out than be the second wild card. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'd rather
Yeah.
bottom out for a haul than be the second wild card. So
Yeah, I put them at a B. I said they won most of their trades, and they kind of did what Detroit should have done, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
they had a successful deadline and made themselves better heading into the wild card hunt, and I think that's the opposite of what Detroit did, so.
yeah, I feel like giving up a fifth and a sixth for Jason Zucker and Anthony Beauvillier is very good for the Predators.
yeah.
So I'd probably land on a B+ for them, actually.
Yeah,
And on the list, where are we putting them?
wild card race.
Wild
A
card
card
race,
for
yeah.
sure.
Now on to the New Jersey Devils.
Rapid fire, they did a lot. Clint hit it.
So the Toffoli deal, I'm stunned that they only got a second and a third. Like
Yep.
I know, like that Toffoli wasn't the greatest in New Jersey there, but like only a second and a third is kind of low. So that deal I'm not as high on, but I think it was the right move 100% to trade him. Like they're not competing for the playoffs this year. Like I'm pretty sure they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Deciding to sell there and add more assets that they can hopefully trade for a Markstrom deal or something in the offseason was good. The McDermott trade, like whatever, it's just a body. The Jake Allen trade I do kind of like because like it's only a third round pick for Allen and like hopefully he's better than Vanacek. They also got rid of Vanacek's contract. He was making $4 million, or I think just around $4 million. They shipped him to San Jose
For Kakkonen,
Capo Kakkonen, which I think Capo Kakkonen is better than Vanacek. So I think their goaltending room slightly improved. Like there wasn't a big move for them to make. If this goaltending core works out, then maybe they do push for that second wildcard spot because like the Wings again did nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and also like it still frees them up to make the Markstrom move in the deadline. Like I think the moves that they made seem clear that they want to add in the offseason. Like Allen, he's on a 2-year deal. The pick turns from a third to a fourth if he plays 40 games. from a third to a second if he plays 40 games. I'm certain they're not going to let him play 40 games. Like, they're going to get Markstrom in the offseason. They moved out of the Vanacek contract, so now it's easier to bring in the Markstrom contract.
Yeah, I think they're going to start Capo Kakinen anyways.
Yeah, so I like the direction they kind of went in here.
I really like this trade deadline for the Devils. They were one of the teams that clearly needed a goaltender, and they went out and got it. And I think they're going to overtake the Red Wings.
Really?
Yeah, considering how little the Red Wings did,
True.
they are clearly not in the push. And like we said, Larkin's injured, right?
Yeah, he's 2 weeks. I think it started with the Colorado game, so I think like a week and a half left.
Yeah.
So would you put them in wildcard race or?
I'd put him in wildcard race. Yeah.
I'd put him in wildcard race as well.
I'm with that. Never count out the Hughes. And then what would you grade the deadline?
I'd say B-. Like, I think it opened up avenues in the future, so I like it.
They definitely did. I think they improved overall, so I'd go B-.
I'd maybe go C+ just because it felt like they lost all their trades.
I guess,
like,
getting rid of
them,
Toffoli when they're in a
lost.
wild card race is kind of suspicious, so I don't know, but I generally like it, yeah.
The Islanders did nothing, so do we want to just skip over them quickly?
Yeah, I think it was the right move for them to do nothing.
They're midder than mid already, so.
Yeah, I think C deadline, like, they didn't make any bad moves. They didn't make any moves at all. So, like, I don't know. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And put them in good but not good enough, maybe wild card.
I'd say wildcard race. They've been great as of late.
Yeah.
They're 2 points back with 2 games in hand. I think they could make it.
All right.
And the Flyers sold, so.
Now on to the real New York team, the Rangers.
I am not a fan of this deadline from the Rangers. Like, I'm a Kraken fan.
Yeah.
Wenberg is not a marquee addition, and like, you gave up a second and a fourth for him.
Second and fourth for Wenberg's not.
Yeah, that's not great
ideal.
from a hockey ops wise. Roslovic, like, they didn't give up that much for Roslovic, but like, they really needed to address the first line right wing role, and I don't think they did that. And like, all the other teams in their division loaded up, like the Hurricanes did, their conference, the Panthers did. Like, they needed to make a big move, and they didn't. They struck out, and like, especially once you look at the Gensel return, like, there's no way they couldn't have offered something better. I think choosing to keep, like, I understand Perreault being untouchable. The owner wouldn't let them trade the first this year because he owns the Sphere. So that was unfortunate for them. But not trading next year's first or Othman, and missing out on Gensel, I think was terrible for them.
Yeah.
They easily could have gotten Gensel, seeing what the Hurricanes gave up.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So, I don't know. They're still championship contenders, but I'd probably go C for them.
Yeah, I'd go C as well. I'd go playoff guarantee. I don't think they're really competing. I think Carolina beats them in the second round. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd go playoff guarantee for them. They were first team to 40 wins, but they've
been stagnant for a
kind of
while.
mellowed out.
They're
Yeah.
plateauing.
And the Zibanejad Kreider line is really, really disappointed in 5-on-5. So
True. All right.
Katie, would you like to cover your Ottawa Senators?
gonna be a
I'm
quick
from
one.
Ottawa. All right. Listen, I didn't give out many Fs. I actually only gave out one, and it was to Ottawa. They got robbed. It was just highway robbery. They bought Tarasenko in the offseason, and then they traded him for
A third
virtually
and a fourth.
nothing.
That's
A third and a fourth.
crazy.
They need more than a third and a fourth. And, like,
I would say that's less highway robbery than bad management.
no, they were robbed. But also, like, it's just more frustrating because they have a team with so many assets that they could have traded. Trade Shabbat, trade Norris. Like, you have so many young, talented players. It's basically their whole team. And they didn't get rid of any of them. And they, like, for a while, it was Ottawa and Buffalo were very similar teams with very similar trajectories. And now, like, Buffalo has been the example of what you should do. Ottawa has been the example of what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, after the offseason, they added DeBrincat. They looked like a future playoff contender,
Yeah.
and now they're just back in the rebuild.
Yep.
I sincerely don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I will say I'm a little bit less harsh on the Tarasenko trade than the rest of you are, because it was a different GM that signed him and gave him a full no trade clause.
That's crazy.
Like, Dorian sucked. Dorian was terrible. That was a horrible move on his part. Staios, his hands were tied. Like, Tarasenko was only waiving his no move clause for Florida, so it was either keep him for the rest of the year and suck, or get a third and a fourth. So, like, I understand it. So I would give that. I'm less harsh on that trade. It's not a good trade by any means, but like, it's not their fault. I think they should have moved Chikrin for sure.
Yeah.
Like, they're not competing this year. They're not competing next year. And then I don't think he's staying long term. Or, like, I don't even think they have the money to pay him long term, because they already have the Shabbat deal and the Sanderson deal. So I think they totally should have moved him. I think that was a very big missed opportunity. Like I heard
Could
there
have
was
gotten
rumors.
a lot for Chychrun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were rumors that he was gonna go, and then,
Yeah, there were rumors of him with Philadelphia. I think they totally should have done that. I don't know why they didn't.
yeah.
And then you mentioned the Shabbat and Norris deals. Like Norris is hurt again, and he's got really bad injury luck. So like his contract is not going to be taken by any competing team because like he's just not worth the risk. And Shabbat has like really fallen off. Like he's probably the third best defenseman on his team right now. So like he's not that valuable on an $8 million deal. I think that's what it is, but it's like a very expensive deal. So like they can't even really trade him. So they were kind of screwed. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm hoping, congrats, you get Celebrini, because with this, they'll probably lose the rest of their games, hopefully, and get Celebrini.
I feel like they got to be in could be worse or good but good not or good but not good enough. Like
They're really not that good.
but they're
Yeah.
significantly better than the Blackhawks or like the Sharks.
They're
you know what
on
I
the
mean?
same level as the Yotes.
Yeah.
I think the Yotes are worse than them. Like
They're not statistically, but
yeah, I don't know.
Alrighty, moving on to the Philadelphia Flyers.
I think they did pretty good. Like
Yeah.
taking the Johansson contract, like they immediately put him in the minors. They clearly don't care about him. They're just gonna pay him the $4 million next year and not really care. I think getting a first for Sean Walker was great value. I would have preferred to see them trade Nick Seeler if they could have got like a second or a third for him, then extend him to like a 4-year, $2.75 million deal. So I think they probably should have traded him, but like it's not the worst move. Allison, like the other moves, like getting Eric Johnson, sure, it's just a body to fill for Sean Walker, who really cares.
Yeah, I
Gurianov,
can't really tell
whatever.
what direction
Yeah.
they're going in.
I mean, it's because like they didn't really have a direction to go. Like with like they could like if Carter Hart like didn't do what he did, then like,
Yeah.
they could have traded him. But like you know he's off limits now. They're too good to like fully fire sale. Like they're in the third playoff spot in the Metro. So like they couldn't really fire sale. They got a good deal for Sean Walker. There was no real other moves for them to make. So
yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's pretty good.
I had like, my notes are, in a division spot, ? Try buying ? Like, I don't know. They just didn't do much, and they're lucky no one else in the East Conference did anything.
I mean, Johansson's going to be fine if they make the playoffs, and they got a first in that deal for Sean Walker. So
Yeah.
I don't really mind the offseason for them, especially if they're trying to make it into the second round of the playoffs. I don't know if they will, but
I know. I just feel like they didn't.
like
do
replacing
enough.
Sean Walker with Eric Johnson is fine. Adding Johansson, the contract's going to hit for a while, but
I mean,
Yeah.
like the Johansson, they're not even playing him. Like
Yeah,
they
he's
send
on
him to Lehigh
waivers.
Valley. Like they're
not-
not
yeah.
playing him. Torts hates him. So like he's nothing really for them. Just really just a contract. But and like again, like I know they're in a playoff spot right now, and they didn't improve. But like, what move is going to make this team a contender? Like, let's be
Yeah.
real. Like they're not actually competing. They're too good to sell. So it's like I think they're like wild card race because I could see like the Islanders or the Devils passing them for that
Yeah.
third spot in the Metro. And I think that's kind of what they want. Like, I don't think they want to be in the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
at least management-wise. Like, I don't think Danny Briere wants this to be a playoff team.
yeah, I like the acquisition of the first round pick, though.
Yep.
Especially if they're taking on the contract that Johansson has.
Yeah.
Yeah. For that, I give him like a C.
Yeah, I'd go C.
I'd go B. I think it was pretty good. And, like, especially, like, when you look at the Provorov deal, because, like, they got Walker in that deal as a cap dump, and they basically
Right.
turned Provorov into 2 firsts and, like, 2 seconds as well. I think they did a great job.
Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I am very torn on this deadline for the Penguins. Like, the Bemstrom one, I thought it was decent when it first happened, but, like, Nylanders looked like by far the better players. They already lost that trade. The Bunting one, I'm a little confused on that one. Like, I'm surprised that they didn't get a Jackson Blake or a Bradley Nadeau. I like Koivunen, I like Lucius, but I think they could have done better prospect-wise. Not getting the first as a guarantee is, I think, a little questionable. I kind of like them getting Bunting because, like, they can't fully wave the white flag, and, like,
Yeah.
when you have Crosby and Malkin and Letang and Carlson, like, you can't be like, we are rebuilding. So
Yeah.
I understand bringing him in, and I think he could play well if you put him on the wing with Crosby. So, like, I don't think it's a terrible trade.
Yeah, I think they could have gotten more, like, considering how many teams were eyeing Gensel.
Yeah, I just think I think they could have gotten a little bit more, and I think, like, if the first was guaranteed, I'd be a lot happier with this. But I'm not sure if the Hurricanes make the Cup final. So if it's a second, then it really depends on how well Carolina does.
True. With that, I'm like C plus, B minus, maybe. Like, I feel like they
yeah.
did reinforce. They're a long shot to the wild card right now. Not too long of a shot, but like they're not in it. But this put them on a better track. And again, with Sid and Malkin, you're not you're always trying to contend.
Yeah, you can never count that trio out.
Yeah. So I have them in wild card race, hopefully. Wild card race hopeful.
I'd keep them in the wild card race.
I'd probably go good, but good, not good enough. Like, I don't think they're actually going to make the wild card run. Like, Jari's not been great. Losing Gensel really hurts. The team's truly underperformed. The decor's been terrible. So,
Actually, yeah, I'd put them in. Considering they're vying for the wild card spot to begin with, and they just lost Gensel, that's not gonna make them better in any way. So
yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about the worst team in the league, the San Jose Sharks.
I mean,
I'm a big fan of this deadline for the Sharks, to be honest. Like, the Duclair trade, getting a third, and Jack Thompson. Like, Jack Thompson's been good in the AHL. I wasn't very familiar with his game, but I looked into his stats, and he was putting up a solid amount of points. The Costin deal, it's like whatever. They needed to bring in a forward to play after trading out Hurdle and Duclair, so whatever. I'm a huge fan of the Vegas deal for them. Like, I know they gave up 2/3, and I know Hurdle is like the best player on their team right now, but he's 30. Like, he's not going to be there like long term. He doesn't match with the core at all. And I know they are still retaining 17% of his deal, but
that's a lot of contract that got dumped. So yeah, I like it, especially bringing in a first.
Yeah, they freed up like $6.75 million in cap hit.
Is the first unprotected?
The first is unprotected, and Edstrom was their first last year. So they basically got 2 firsts for Hurdle, which is probably more than they would have got if they sold him 2 years ago, which I think they should have done. I don't know why they didn't trade him 2 deadlines ago. So I think they kind of like did right by their not moving him.
Yeah. They sold like they should have, and for that I give them like a B.
The only thing that I am hesitant on is now they're retaining Hurdle until 2027 and Carlson until 2030.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, I think it's the other way around. It's Carlson.
17%.
It's Carlson to 2027 and Hurdle to 2030. And you are only allowed to retain on 3 players. Right now, they're using all of their retention slots. Because did they retain on Duclair? I know there's a third one that they're using right now, and 2 of them are locked up until 2027, which like doesn't allow the most flexibility for a rebuilding team.
Yeah.
But I still think it was the right move to dump Hurdle.
Yeah. And congrats, you get Celebrini.
No, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
In grade wise, I'd go A.
I think the Sharks are my team to get Celebrini to begin with.
Yeah,
so.
Probably.
I want Celebrini to go to the Sharks.
Bettman's rigging it for the Coyotes. Prepare yourself.
All right.
Moving on, let's talk about your Seattle Kraken, Clint.
Take it away, Clint.
Again, I talked about this move a little bit when I was talking about the Rangers. I really like getting a second and a fourth for Wenberg. I think that's great value. Like, we weren't going to re-sign him. He's not that good. They didn't call up Shane Wright immediately, but I think they will later because I know Wright is coming back from a concussion, so like they want to get him some more AHL run before they like call him up to the NHL fresh off a concussion. So I think they'll like either way. I like the Wenberg dumping. I wouldn't have minded seeing Eberle get traded if they got like a first, but I think re-signing him for 2 years, I think $4.75 million is like very good value for what he brings. So I like the move of keeping him there. The team, like, they've been playing too well as of late to like fully tear down.
Yeah.
I think it was the right move to not trade any of their top 4 defensemen, and they still have the opportunity to do that next year. So they didn't rush in anything. I really like the deadline for the Kraken.
Yeah, I think in a way you're right. They're still like doing well, but I think they're kind of giving up on wild card, and they're going to be in like a good but not good enough area. Yeah, they didn't make many moves, but they didn't really have many to make.
Yeah. Also, like, they've been great at drafting in the second round since they became a team.
Very.
If you look every year, they've taken someone in the second round that would go higher in a redraft. Like, they would definitely go in the first. So whenever you give Ron Francis more ammo to use in the second round, I'm a big fan of that. And I would still put them in wildcard race. Maybe I'm being a biased homer, but I think they're better than the Flames. And
You just said earlier that they weren't gonna.
I don't know. I don't think they're gonna make it. But like,
Okay.
I think
they're in the race.
They're
They're in the race.
Gotcha,
I don't think they
gotcha.
make it in the end, but I think I could realistically see them being the first team out or the second team out behind the Blues and the Predators.
Yeah, they're in the same direction as the Flyers, where they couldn't really do much, but they did what they could.
Yeah.
I mean, second and a fourth is a really good return for Wenberg, so I'm gonna stick with a B- on this
Yep,
one.
that's what I had too.
I'd go B+. I'm a homer.
All right.
On to the St. Louis Blues.
They made one trade, and they gained future considerations for
Kicked
it.
out Malcolm Subban. Not impressed.
Nope.
Who cares? I
I
move.
think they're giving up and not really getting much in return, and for that, they get a D.
I'd go D. I think they
I'd go
definitely
D
should have
as
traded
well.
Buchnevich. Like, I totally think they should have traded Buchnevich.
Buchnevich was one of my trade targets that should have definitely gone, and I mean,
I feel like they could have gotten a haul for him. If
they're starting to fall out of the wild card race.
Yeah,
I think they're done.
They're gonna be good, but not good enough.
And there was like a rumored Parayko to the Leafs deal that didn't happen.
Yep,
I would have
remember that.
loved to see them move off that contract because it's a bad deal. So I don't know. I'd go like D for them. I think they should have done more.
Yeah, we're all on the same page here.
Moving on, let's talk. Where are we?
Tampa Bay Lightning.
Tampa Bay.
I wrote mid, unexciting, could be worse. They
it's a very mid trade deadline for the Lightning.
Like, they're in the wild card race, and I'd keep them there. They might. I think they'll get the wild card just because they've been consistently.
Yeah, I
playoff
can't. I don't know if any of these teams are going to catch the Lightning. I think they're surpassing Detroit.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe the Devils, depending on how the goaltending
but I think
play
Lightning's,
is.
But then Flyers might drop, so I think they're wild card race for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely think so.
And like,
Yeah.
they have no like prospects or picks to trade because the terrible Jeannot deal last year.
Yeah.
And especially like since Sergachev is done for the season and maybe next, like it didn't make sense for them to buy. Like if Sergachev was still healthy, then like I could have seen them making a bigger move. But like they know with no Sergachev, they're not actually competing. So I'd go like C plus. Like I think the moves they made were solid.
That's what I have.
I'd actually go B. Adding Duclair and Dumba will overall help in the playoff race. So I mean.
Yeah, I said
they didn't give up much for those two players.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Duclair's solid. They didn't give up too much, and
Matt Dumba and a 7th for a 5th. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that trade.
Yeah.
So
C plus B minus.
yeah.
And let's talk about the kings of the first round exit, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
They bought like they should, but they still won't make it past the first round.
Joel Edmondson
Those are my notes.
Joel Edmondson's fine. They're looking for good defenders every single year. So, I mean. They didn't do anything wrong in this trade deadline. They're eyeing for a second round spot, maybe a conference finals. I don't think they're cup contenders, but I mean that Joel Edmondson was fine for what they could have done.
You can call me biased. I hate this deadline for the Leafs. Like they had some glaring holes. Like that decor sucks. Like that decor is terrible. Like Brody's not that good. Riley is good, but like. He's not really a great number one defenseman. And then, like,
Definitely
past
not.
that, it's all bad. They overpaid for Edmondson and Lyubushkin, who aren't that good of defensemen. Like, Lyubushkin's been horrible this year, and Edmondson's not been good either.
Yeah.
Like, I know they play physical, which is, like, what you need for the playoffs, but, like, they're also not
a
good
3rd and a
at defense.
5th for Edmondson, I don't know about.
Yeah, and then, like they should have addressed the decor more. I would have liked to see them address the goaltending a little bit because, like, I know Samsonov's been good. I don't trust him in the playoffs.
They've got
and
Woll.
Woll is too young to do anything now. Like, I would have loved to see them add a Parayko or, like, a Buchnevich. Like, they should have addressed the forward core a little bit more because, like, Bertuzzi and Domi haven't been great ads. I don't like how they view their prospects and like their picks. Like just trade the first. Like trade Minton. Like Minton's like at best like a middle sixer. Like he's not a top tier prospect. Don't treat him like I understand not trading Cowan because he's like a hometown kid, but not being willing to give up like Robertson or Minton or any of these guys to help your team win now is a bad move. In my opinion.
I give him like a B minus. It was kind of average. They didn't do anything wrong.
I'm sticking with a B minus. Any defensive help they can get is fine, and adding Edmondson and Lyubushkin would be beneficial for the playoff race. So.
And they're a playoff guarantee at this point.
Yeah.
So
I'm going C minus.
all right.
I don't like it.
All right.
On to another team that didn't do anything this deadline, the Vancouver Canucks. Take it away, Mr. Sterling.
I'm still shouting at the Lindholm and Zadorov trades. I feel like those helped us a lot. We needed another physical defenseman like Zadorov. Just having that versatility between the offensive abilities of Hronik and Hughes and having just pure big bodies like Myers and Zadorov to pair with them on and off the lines, I really liked. In Lindholm, we needed another top 6 guy. Kuzmenko was not playing remotely as good as we needed him to be, especially in the standing spot that we are in. So, I mean, I would have liked a Gensel edition, obviously, but I think I don't know if the Lindholm package would have been enough for Gensel. So considering the moves we did before the trade deadline and during the season, I really like the moves we made.
Yeah, I have them. Didn't do anything. Didn't need to. Like they're
Yeah,
they're at
we're
a good
top
pace
we're
right
top
now.
of the West for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't need to do much.
Yeah.
It just scares me watching the moves that Vegas made. It's definitely upping the competition come playoff time. So
Yeah. That's why I put them at a B, just because everyone else did stuff around them, but they didn't do anything wrong, I don't think. So
I think we could have done more, but I'm still going with A- considering how well Zadorov's been playing and Lindholm bringing that defensive ability that not many forwards on the Canucks have. So, I mean, I like these two deals.
yeah. And so where would we put them heading into? Obviously, cup
I
contenders.
think cup contenders, but
Yeah.
that might be
Yeah.
biased.
I'd say, but
No,
between
I'd say-
playoff guarantee and cup contender for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Vegas Golden Knights.
It's a big one.
It is a big one.
Noah
Rapid fire.
Hannafin from Calgary, Anthony Mantha from Washington, Thomas Hertl from San Jose. All three of them are going to contribute immediately. Giving up a first for Hertl, I don't know about. Same with David Edstrom. I mean, Hertl. Then again, they're going to be cup contenders, obviously.
Yeah.
So adding three players that can immediately contribute no matter what they give up. And Vegas has a history of not caring about their picks and their prospects and going for a championship every year. So I feel like, once again, adding three players that can contribute at the level Hannafin, Mantha, and Hertl can, I don't think they could have went wrong.
You think cup contenders?
I think so.
I'm a huge fan of this deadline because I think Hannafin might re-sign, and Vegas has an advantage of no state income tax, so they can get him for cheaper than any
Vegas
other team.
defense is stacked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Hannafin is best friends with Eichel off the ice, so their moves though they gave up a lot on the Hertl and Hannafin ones especially.
It's nothing unfamiliar with the Vegas
yeah,
Golden Knights.
and both those guys could be key pieces of this team going forward. Hertl's long term already, and then I think Hannafin might get locked up long term. It adds question marks for the offseason, but whatever. And I think Vegas is the perfect example of what teams should do. Don't if you're picking in the 30s, who cares? Just trade the pick, go all in for the cup. Hannafin's probably better than whoever they take. So is Hertl. Just try and win now. Don't have two separate timelines of who your prospects and then your players. that
And
are
while you're at
actually
it, put Mark Stone on the IL.
Very
Hey,
well
people
said.
people hate on that way too much.
I'm joking,
Every
I'm
team
joking.
IR stashes. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
Vegas does it better. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'd give Vegas an A and call it a day.
Yeah, I'd go
A
as well.
plus actually.
On to the Washington Capitals.
Not much to say.
It was a nothing trade deadline for the Capitals. I don't love them retaining 50% of Kuznetsov's deal
Yeah.
and 50% of Edmondson's deal actually for just
And 50% of Manthas too.
that's crazy.
Just for a few picks, yeah.
They needed to clear that cap and ended up keeping half of each contract. I don't know about.
Yeah.
I mean-
Nothing to say there, really.
I like it because the Edmondson ones and the Mantha ones, it's they cleared up a little bit of room this year. They didn't the cap. It's only 1 year deal, so it doesn't matter that they're not long term. The Kuznetsov one, they freed up $4 million worth of salary for a
Yeah.
player that sucked for them
And they got
this
fi-
year.
and they got 5 picks. I mean,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a rebuilding team, I think it was a decent trade deadline. I'd go B minus.
Yeah, I'd go B.
I go B plus there.
And put them
Wild card race maybe. I don't know. Are they still in it?
I'd go good but not
good,
good
but
enough.
not good enough.
yeah.
And
they're third in. I think they're third in the conference, or
Wild card race.
yeah, in the wild card
Third
race.
spot out.
Fourth.
Fourth. Yeah, they're right behind New
Yeah.
York.
They'll be close to a
Tampa,
race, but
and
not
Detroit,
not good enough.
I think the Devils are going to surpass them, and possibly the Penguins as well. Actually, so I think they're out of the wild card race.
Yeah.
finally, let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets.
I mean, one move, Tyler Toffoli, bringing in Toffoli, someone who's going to contribute for a team that is really overplaying their
Yeah.
offseason predictions.
I didn't even realize.
Hellebuck's looking like the Vezina favorite, bringing in some firepower on the offensive side for a third and a second. I think Toffoli is worth more than that, personally.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of their deadline, especially once you factor in the Monahan deal too.
Yeah.
They added Monahan, they added Toffoli, which I think are two of the better pieces. I think they added more than a lot of the other competing teams. They added more in the forward core. They also added Colin Miller. On the D core, which he's kind of just a depth defenseman, which I think would help them on the right side. So I really like their deadline because they had their goaltending set up. They increased their offense and they increased their defense a little bit, which was already pretty good. So I really like the style of play style of hockey that they play. and I think they are like a true cup contender.
I definitely think they're a cup contender. Hellebuck is playing out of his mind right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give them, again, like a B. Like, they didn't do too much, but I think they didn't need to.
I'd go A minus. Like,
I
really
was
like
thinking A minus
Toffoli
as
and
well.
Monahan
B
deals.
plus. B plus. All right.
All right.
Hold on really quick. And so with that, we have our whole breakdown of the tier list tracker, where we think everyone's going to end up. Be sure to check that out on Instagram at Shutter Sports Media and Twitter at Shutter Sports M, because we will be posting our grades and our tier list on there. So be sure to check it out.
Real quick, cup picks for everybody.
Bias, Vancouver Canucks.
I'm riding the Canuck train.
But if I'm going honesty, I mean, this is a hard one.
You have 2 seconds.
I'd go Vegas.
All right.
Avalanche beat Panthers in the cup final. I'm calling it.
Interesting.
I think Vegas is going to win. Who would we say had overall the best in the end? What grading system overall? Who do you think we had the best deadline?
Florida.
Florida or
Yeah.
Colorado? I'd
Or
go Avalanche
Colorado.
for me.
I'd go-
Yeah, Florida or Colorado.
I'd go Florida.
And that's all she wrote. Thank you for joining us on the Shutter Sports Podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you find your podcasts, and don't be shy to join the discussion on any platform at Shutter Sports Media. Until next time, I'm your host Eli, joined by,
Clint Householder.
Cam Sterling.
And Katie LeBoudelaire.
and this has been the Shutter Sports Podcast.